Let's start with the. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Have you guys had a chance to review the agenda? Did anyone have any questions, concerns about it? We'll move on to item number 3, general public comment. I don't see any members of the public here. We're not streaming,
We're
right?
not.
Okay,
Just recording.
all right. Given that I don't see public comment and we're not online, I'm gonna skip reading the spiel and move on to item of business number 4, new business and consent action items. Info that we need on that, or can we just hold? Okay.
Unless there's no questions, we could look for a motion.
Any questions on the consent action items?
I've got a question. I was just curious about the number of students out of district. Is that higher than normal, certain numbers?
I think that you're gonna see more accurate numbers through legislation because we now have to have them forms submitted. So I think it probably is higher, or they are higher, just for the fact that it's just better accounting.
Okay,
And I say that because we truly, I'm not sure if we knew exactly how many people were coming and going. You know, could answer that question.
I don't think they're higher, but you're seeing them higher because of the new legislation. We didn't used to charge for tuition in the elementary at all.
Mhm.
So forms didn't come back and forth. But now with the new law in place, we had to do this crazy forms, exchange of forms. The numbers will look
And
like,
they have to do
but I
forms,
think it's normal.
the forms annually, correct?
Annually.
Pardon me,
You have to do the form annually.
every year.
So a number of these students, if I look at the names, have been going there
okay.
for
Yeah.
years.
And likewise, our students that've been coming to us for years have been here for years, and now they have to fill out the forms indicating to the districts that they're attending from, that they're no longer in their district, but they've been here for a
Okay,
while. We're also finding, sorry, Kate, they're also finding that those students that either are attending in other districts or in our district and have been doing so for some time, they don't feel like they even want to come fill out a form because they've been doing it for so long. And so I would question even our own numbers right now through this legislation.
What's the net?
That was my follow-up question, how
Sorry.
many are coming to?
coming out, coming in.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the forms yet.
Do you
We
have
have
that number?
the other way too. What's that?
It's almost equal.
Yeah.
Oh, good, good, yeah.
That is good.
But yeah, I think it seems like over time, the last year or two, we have improved in that we have either equal or not so many people coming out or.
Yeah,
the-
our
the
goal
net
is
pretty good.
to have a very large delta.
Exactly,
It-
exactly, in our favor.
Yeah, right,
But it's really great that we don't have it in the reverse. I think,
correct.
post-COVID, it was fairly strong
It
that
was,
way.
yeah.
So it's nice that it's improved.
And remember, as the work that Barb and Ms. Mitchell, Julie Mitchell have completed over the last couple of years, an extensive study of where our kids are at, where they're going and why. We know on the borders, the peripherals, they left us, especially during COVID. And we all know as having our own kids that when they leave, they don't come back. So that COVID was hard on us because we had students leave and then they build friend and peer groups. They don't want to look, they don't want to leave those friends. And so they end up staying. And then their siblings follow them out the district as well, or in the district. And that's what we're trying to change. That
And I will
culture.
say this pre-K number is half of what went last year.
Oh, really?
Leaving.
Good
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
Liz.
But I also really appreciate the district putting a lot of efforts into our pre-kindergarten programs because as we know,
Mhm.
once they come here, they tend to stay. So if we can capture them early, then we're gonna.
And we learned full day makes a difference.
Mhm.
Full day was big. Yeah, we had half day versus full. I would like to give credit to our elementary principals. They've worked hard, sending Yeah, we have stickers and letters going to pre-kindergartners so they feel welcomed and sense of belonging in our district. So there's been work, and a lot of that is credit to Barb. Yes.
I heard that the process of the paperwork was really rough the first year after the legislation was passed. Has that smoothed out a little bit?
Mr. McKay?
Yeah, the paperwork, it continues to be difficult. It is hard the first year because our, like, kids that are in our district that live out of district have to do those forms yearly. Everybody has to do those forms yearly, not one time. So it's most people don't register for school every year, but you have to do this process every year. We also have to account, like Janelle has to account in the finance side of the state. We need to count in the infinite campus portion of submission to the state. So there's a lot of layers of tracking of this. And then there's also a lot of, I guess, inter-district dispute, meaning like, why am I getting this form for this child? Well, it was a 8th grader that has always been with us. Yes, you would not know of them as another district because they've always been with us. So then people are like, what are these things? Because it's the first time we've had to share. And then parents are also kind of confused of why do they have to do this every year?
And that was
Yeah, I've been-
particularly true with Trinity, which has been with us for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the legislation and an OPI trying to fulfill that.
Have they been more supportive in helping navigating that?
I think so. It's
Okay.
just, yes, but it is still like a system that's broken.
Got it. Thank you.
What happens for folks who don't fill those forms out? I mean, they still stay in their schools, right?
That's where it's gonna get interesting, because then they require you to have those forms for funding, but then you don't always get those forms back. Like, why? I mean, and then we're not gonna not have a kid come to school. So then it is really hard to get all the forms.
To us, on the 60,000 foot view, it seems like it would be a really good cleanup bill. Or a couple of years and get that, you opt in, and you're in, and versus you sign it once versus what every year is tough.
But that was tried and failed.
So I have to do it again.
Yeah.
Good intentions. Implication and practicality doesn't work.
Do we need the paperwork so that we can adequately and accurately bill? Is that why? Or does anyone know why exactly?
Because that's how it reads in the statute.
That's, okay.
To enroll, you have to fill out this form
I
and
see.
be approved by the board. That's why you approve these
Okay,
and acknowledge them.
right.
We're still submitting them as,
I
And-
billed, even though we didn't have the forms. And that's where we're gonna find out what happens.
I see.
So far, we're playing nice.
everybody's playing nice.
Great questions. Anything else on the consent action items? All right, is there a motion?
Move that we approve the consent, action items as presented.
Awesome. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Get the trustee second.
Was the first from,
But we had a
Mr. Bond.
second was
trustee Satry. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any board? Is there any public comment? Is there any other board comment or questions?
We do have one public. Sort of.
Jason, you wanna get into
There's
it?
some retirement going on.
Public troublemaker.
Yeah, public troublemaker.
All right. All right, well, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Yeah, 8-0. Okay. The next item on the agenda is items for action. Is there any information that we need for that?
It's the first one. Got you out of your element. You're at Brian.
I know, I am really lost.
We're gonna walk through this. Did I tell you also there's a time limit?
No, there's not.
Oh, Yeah, and where I'm at. Okay,
Wait, now. Approval and ratification of HPS Carpenters.
Carpenters. Thank you, Ms. Delbo. See,
Oh, that's-
wait and hold.
That would have been easy.
So we're looking at, as for action,
Approval and ratification of the HPS Carpenters collective bargaining agreement 25-26.
and I'll tee up myself.
Yeah, so we have continued to have conversations with our different bargaining units and really happy to be close to the end of our negotiation cycle with all of our union groups. Next session, you'll see custodians, secretaries are the last group remaining that we will get to meet with. So really happy to have in front of you a proposal. This would be for a 1-year contract, a 2% increase to the base wage. We also looked at increasing the longevity schedule. As you see, that was similar to what we have done with other craft bargaining units. Increase the clothing allowance to $500 per year. Again, similar to what we've done with other bargaining units. We also increased the retirement incentive. And as you see, the estimated cost for this is about $4,200. So we are hopeful that you will approve this as proposed for a 1-year agreement with the Carpenters Group. And that is 2 union members.
I was gonna say that, but it's 2 individuals.
Was this one of our, last several years, we've been working hard to bring all of our groups up to market. Wasn't this one that was a little under?
We didn't do as much of a deep dive with our crafts group as we did with others, so I don't have the market data on the carpenters. I would say in general, though, our trades are under market. Again, it's harder to compare what our groups do with private sector or public sector, but they were very pleased with this proposal, and so we're very grateful for that continued collaborative relationship.
Is there any chance for you to ever get like a 2-year, or is it always gonna be a 1-year?
So the next one with the painters is a 2-year agreement. So it's each group we work with and negotiate, and it's all about what's agreeable. So we're really pleased that for many of our bargaining units, teachers, paras, custodians did agree to a 2-year. At this time, we have a tentative agreement for a 2-year agreement with the custodians, the painters. I feel like I'm missing one group, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. I think as we continue to build this collaborative relationship, as we continue to build trust and just get to know each other better over these last few years, I think we're going to continue to see that. So really thrilled with the momentum we're making, and I anticipate that will continue.
We'll look about it having on board.
Maybe a quick follow-up question to that. So this does say the 2-year agreement was open for wages July 1st, 2025 to 2026.
Yeah.
So why is it a 2-year agreement if it's only?
It's a 2-year agreement. We do wages, and then next year we'll do wages and language. So some we open for wages each year, and so most agreements are 2 years that they open for language and wages, and then some we say we're just going to open it for wages the second year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Chair McKee, I move that we approve the company's collective bargaining agreement as presented to us.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Was our public last sanction?
Like that in minutes.
Yeah, one more, so.
Yes, please put that in the minutes.
Any board comment on the motion? All right. All those we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion passes 8-0. Moving on to number 2, approval and ratification of the Allen Public Schools painters collective bargaining agreement for 25-27.
Yeah, so I'll tee this, or I'll have, I'll tee this up, but I probably should, that's at the beginning of the first action item is maybe Ms. Armstrong, trustee Armstrong said it. We're thankful that Carrie, Ms. Mizell has been doing the work. There's been a lot. We started in January, February of negotiations and probably sooner with our even HEA. But she's done a lot of really good work around building relationships and negotiating with all of our union groups. So I just recognize her work in this effort here. Typically, admin is at the end, typically, and that's where this usually comes in. So you can see that there's still been a lot of work from this spring all the way to summer with painters and those that's before you. So thank you, Carrie, for the work that you're doing. And you can tee up this action too.
And I want to recognize Mr. Barrel, who sat in as well and was very helpful
Yes.
to represent and work through some of the questions that came up. So before you have a proposal for the painters, which is for 2 years, which we're really excited to bring forward, a 2% increase for 25-26, a 2.5% increase for 26-27. We worked a little bit on the longevity schedule with them, and you'll see it's a little bit different than what we had before because that was what was important to this group. And so instead of increasing at the five plus years, we took some of that money and put it on the 1 to 5 year to balance that group out. So the proposal here is from 1 to 5 years, they get a 10 cent per hour increase at 5 years plus. They would get 50 cents per hour and then 5 cents per year increase to that with no cap. So if you're at year 6, it's 55. At year 6, it's 67. It's 65, et cetera, et cetera. So a little bit different calculation, but the math still kind of comes out, and this is what was important to them. We also increased their clothing allowance to $500. To seal the deal for a 2-year agreement, we did agree to an additional floating personal holiday. We will evaluate that in June of next year to see if that meets business needs and then decide whether that sunset clause comes out or not. And again, this is for 2 painters at an estimated cost of $5,500. So we're hopeful that you will approve this 2-year agreement with the painting community. Any questions? Let's have one, let's go first if you have any. There's 2 members of the union they do all this meeting. And I probably know this by now, but I'm just so surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with some exceptions like HMS, they did contract that out. Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty impressive the work that they do to maintain our 18 plus building.
And that's all line striping, parking lots, summer work. I don't think I have Todd in here. Did we do Smith last, Todd, what's our last school we painted? Was it Smith or 4Gs? Where's the last interior, school we painted? 4Gs last year? Young spot?
Oh, it was Smith.
It was Smith, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So all school year, they're painting the interior of buildings as well. So there's a lot of work to be done with 2 guys. 1 million square feet of buildings.
All right.
Nice answer.
Is there a motion for approval and ratification of the HBS senior collective bargaining agreement?
Chair McKee, I move that we approve and ratify the HBS painters collective bargaining agreement for 2025-2027.
Thank you, trustee Peters. Is there a second? Second. All right, we've got a motion and a second.
I'm sorry, just a second.
Trustee Haffner.
Thank you. I didn't want to hear it. Thank you.
Any public comment?
No comment.
Any further board comment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the general wage increase to the administrator salary schedule for 25-26.
Purposely not a 2-year contract. I want this to be 1, for obvious reasons, but I'm thankful that we've got ourselves into a position where through the work of CMS, Ms. Mizell, that we're in a spot where we can no longer freeze and everybody's in that mid-range, if not within market. So I'm thankful that we're back in a position, I think, for admin and everyone else that we can continue to do what's going on with what happens with the teachers union is also applicable to our administrators. Carrie?
Yeah, so we have in front of you a proposal for 2% increase for administrators, including principals and assistant principals. The 2% helps us to keep pace with inflation. It helps with morale, recruitment, retention, and it keeps us competitive with our wages with other AA school districts. So we have before you the recommendation for that 2% increase to be effective July 1.
In addition to that, CMS work is not over. We still have work to do with some of the recommendations that's coming our way. Part of that is with subgroups and administrators is also part of that subgroup, that there's areas that within elementary, middle school or high school that we need to pay attention to in accordance to the recommendations out of CMS. But we'll bring that to the trustees at a later date. What I didn't want to do is wait for that recommendation and hold on to 2%, because this 2% does not affect the recommendations. We're still gonna need to make some adjustments at some point, but that's not right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from anyone?
More of a comment. I think everyone is pretty aware that this has been a long and arduous road to get us to this point. And the last time that we had a admin increase, there was some kickback. And I think just really staying with the fact that every single employee group that we have is important, and every single employee group needs to be kept up with as far as their raises, and not wait 10 or 15 years, which gets us into all kinds of trouble. It's happened in the past. And it's just nice to be on a spot where it seems like we have a system where we're going forward, and there'll be time to reevaluate market, but in the interim parts, we're just taking regular increases. And I'm hoping that this will be the year that admin in particular, it's just a hard one for people to digest, but knowing that they're important and knowing that we're keeping up and that we're not making these big jumps or having these big gaps in pay. So I am, just from my tenure on the board, it's been a really big issue, and it's nice to see it. It feels like it's flattening out. And so thank you so much for your work and the work of our the folks from CMS that have done a lot of market work, and it seems like we're in a much better place. So this feels really good from my perspective.
A comment on that.
Sure.
There's examples in our district where we have, for whatever reasons, right? We're not pointing fingers, and we don't know the variables in which people make decisions in the past, right? So I'm not casting blame. But when we're in the mode of catching up, and there's two examples of catching up in our district currently. One, when prior to me getting here, and our trustees asked the administration team at the time, we need to fix admin pay. And we know how hard it is to catch up, and doing it right is really difficult. The second part of that example is catching up with our facilities, and catching up right now is really difficult because we're so far behind. So we got to get away from this catch up mode where we delay and not take action on hard decisions, and then have to punt that road for somebody else to do later. That's a really poor leadership style, and we haven't been in that. We've been taking on hard decisions. The second part of where we're at today with negotiations or with the admin 2%, is that during negotiations in the last year, particularly the last 2 years, we've had those candid conversations with the union, describing that this is also going to be applicable with our admin. So what teachers are getting in admin, we're much better space. We're in a healthier environment. We're not all there yet, but we're in a much healthier environment than we were 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I think this is a testament today of what we see. So I like the work, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing with our team and our unions.
How does this tie into the STARS Act funds?
We'll use the STARS monies. When we negotiated with our teacher union, we knew that the general fund in the teacher side was about 70%. You hear us talk about, when I first got here, our general fund subsidized about 99%. The 99% of the general fund went into salaries. Of that, that's not just teachers. And sometimes the misnomer is that 99% goes to teacher salaries. That's all salaries across the board. We've got those numbers down. Remember, it was 99 and 96, probably elementary and high school. We got those numbers now to about, we'll see what they are here currently, but they're about 92 to 89%, 92 in elementary, 88 and 89 in the high school. Of that, 70% of the general fund goes to HEA. With me. And so there's 30% that then goes to other payroll groups. So admin, carpenters, everyone else is part of that 30%. We've spent our STARS. We'll have to probably dip into some of the general, but for the most part, we spent our STARS money And we allocated that through, a percentage of what we knew that's 70% is in, roughly 70% general fund is in HEA, and the rest of it will have to go somewhere else. I believe the admin pay in the general fund is roughly 4% of the general fund. Okay, so that, hope that answers that question.
I'd piggyback on that too as well. I mean, it's for so long, giving the principals who support teachers a raise was like an act of political courage, and it just never happened. And then we were behind and we had to catch up. That's even more controversial because then it's a big jump forward. And I'm thankful to all the work that, well, I'm thankful to all of it that the admins have done in every building for such little things. And that in 1 year's time, and it was a year ago, we had CMS presenting, right? Was that 2 years ago?
We started,
Retreats all-
it was a year ago, right? Was it a year
It was
ago?
a year ago, I think, right? It was
Hey.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to have done that, to have gotten ourselves on a rational framework of how we give raises to every group that is frankly identical to that, the way state administrators get their raise. They get the same pay raise as what is bargained with the union, except for the top, and then they have their own thing. But I'm really happy that this can be sort of rational, defensible, and there's not enough money in education, but at least everyone is kind of hurting and blessed together at the same rate. So I'm really happy to see this done, and thanks to everyone who made it happen. And I agree with you, Siobhan. It's just been, it was a mess before. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I think it's also really noteworthy and important that, you know, as we look at things like the federal funding coming in 25% cuts in our title, and that we've had to reduce staff, that we also have reduced over time the admin staff. And we are continuing to do that as we have retirements, reassigning some of those. So even though it seems like one person, it's a very similar percentage of the total. So, you know, if we're down, 10% or 5% of title staff, we also are reflecting that to a certain degree. It's never going to be perfect with the admin staff, and all of those cuts are hard. You know, being a trustee and seeing the workload that the admin have, and being, you know, it's been a while, but being in the system and everyone's busy, everyone generally has more work than they can handle, and yet we still have to make those cuts. And we try to also keep our employee groups on equal footing as best we can. So everyone's kind of taking their part of the reduced funding, including our leadership, which I think is important to note, because sometimes people think that top part does not get affected, and it does.
Well said. Anything else, anyone? Also, I think it's worth noting that it's only $61,000 too. I mean, it's like, you can't buy a new pickup for what this is gonna cost. All right, is there a motion for action item number 3?
I will move, we approve the 2% increase for administrators, includes principals and assistant principals.
Thank you.
Jen.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Right, we have
Second.
a motion from trustee Armstrong, and that's second from trustee Sadri. Nothing from our public? Is there any further word comment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion passes 8-0. Okay, action item number 4, approval of a general wage increase to the independent Southern Matrix for 25-26.
So keeping with our compensation philosophy, we also are seeking a 2% increase for independents to keep them in pace with inflation. As Mr. Welch said, there still is work to do through CMS, through the market analysis. We do know that there are certain positions that are below market, and so we've got the tools in place to make those adjustments, which will be coming in the future. But at this point, we are seeking approval for a 2% increase across the board for independent employees, which would be HR, payroll, IT, our staff managers, warehouse, copy centers. That's all the groups that are not represented by a collective bargaining agreement.
I think that's important, Ms. Mizell, is that the last admin and independents do not negotiate.
Questions? Anyone? I'd entertain a motion for action item.
Chair McKee, I move the approval of a 2% increase to the independent salary matrix for 25-26.
All right, we have a motion from LGB. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, that's you all. No public comment? Is there any further board comment? No comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes 8-0. And last action item, approval of the MTSBA membership renewal for 25-26. Interesting item.
You want me to tee this up?
Why you tee it up and I, you know, I'm on the MPSBA board, so I'd be happy to jump in there when you're done. Unless you want to change roles.
No,
First, you want to go.
I'm this could turn into a robust conversation. I don't mean it to be a robust conversation as I want to get to the deck. It's with mixed emotions that I support this action. It's no secret that I've been, or we have, as some AA soups, in the representation through our advocacies, our groups of advocates. And there's been some discussion around what that looks like, but I think for the good of the order and some more communication from me to the advocate committee, that I would recommend that we move forward with School Board Association. I think there's good work that comes out of the advocacy portion of School Boards Association. I'd recognize that. I'm not inclined or believe that it's always in favor of the AAs. And I think that there's times that there's 8 of us in the AAs with over 50% of the students across the state. And I'm not sure that it always happens where that support is given to 8 members of this versus 250 or 460 districts, depending on how you look at it. We do not use School Board Association for policy, and 99% of the time we do not use them for council. And we do not use them in other aspects. So there's this membership, and the cost of it is really paying for the resource if we needed it, which we don't utilize for various reasons. I've been doing this for a while. I choose not to go that route very often. So our membership is part of a national or a collective state effort. And we are paying for their work around to keep current across the nation. And I might note that the School Board Association even once thought about jumping out of the national organization because of lack of representation there and some policies. So we are really paying for their ability to support us when sessions are in place.
Every 2 years.
What's that?
Just every 2 years.
Yeah, and then the work,
In between.
right, so, I'm seeing, and I'm picking up, I'm not naive to the fact that I see more communication on the efforts of what they are providing in terms of federal funding and their work on a national stage and making sure they release that impounded federal 25% monies. And I see that there's work being done there. I know Rob Watson's keeping real close contacts with me and others around the work that they're doing in DC. I recommend that we move forward with the School Board Association.
How much is this?
You know, what's our,
20,500.
What was it?
20,500.
And then I might note that if we use, sorry, Christie, if we do use services, you know, that's an additional cost at times, like, but you get some pro bono, but then there's other costs to that as well.
Just,
Gordon, can I ask a question?
sure.
So you sound real grim when you're talking about doing this, so, what are the non-double A's getting that we're not, that are applicable? Or that you would want, or what are we not getting that you would wanna get? Yes, and is MTSBA the avenue to get?
So the question kind of twofold. What are we not getting? There's things that we're choosing not to. We don't ask for legal. We don't ask for policy. What I'd like to see is a little more in alignment for the vision and support around school funding and bad bills, bathroom bills, things that hurt our district, rather than taking a stance that we'll let that get fought out in the court of law, which then cost us, you and I, money to hire attorneys to fight, and or MQEC to fight bad bills when we could oppose them earlier in the session. And so that's what I'd like to see. And that's something that I need to work with the leadership of those organizations. I do think that the School Board Association has done some really great work. I also will say that in my tenure in the last 30 years, we are still below the national average in school funding. And if we're doing great work, why are we still below even at that rate? So I want to be really careful that there's good people and smart people and they work extremely hard. But Montana has not been the recipient of great work because we are still underfunded when we were fully funded.
So, yeah, I hear you, great work. Underfunded, all that jazz, so why are we choosing to pay $20,000 membership?
That's your choice.
Proposing it, how about that?
Hazel said they should
I
probably
think
have a
you-
good answer to that.
You hear the other side.
So
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd really love to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
You know, I think I have a really unique perspective because I have worked as an administrator in a Class C district and also done a lot in a AA district. And this is one of those, in my opinion, one of those $20,000 is a big price tag, and I wasn't even fully aware of that. But if this state starts separating,
Yeah.
we will not have a united voice. And, you know, sometimes I'll just say there's a leadership, one of the trustees on the MTSBA board is from Class C, and they truly believe that AA's get everything. So it's kind of that old, you know, you're getting this and I'm not getting that. But if we are not together in a state and we do not stay together, then we're all going to be, it's going to be like a splintering, and we don't have, and I'm guessing that's probably the reason is if the AA's pull out and that's half of it, then C districts, for instance, just don't have very many resources. And if MTSBA was not there for them, was not there for legal, and if you ever jump on Think Tank Thursday, which is a free every week, you know that there's tons and tons and tons of free information that, not free, but not additional fees to whatever your fees are, that keep our state afloat and keep us united and have a front. I'm not saying that there's not problems, and as a trustee to the MTSBA, I am happy to bring those forward and look for ways for improvement. But I just really believe in a community approach to a lot of things, and if we're all there's a balance between looking at our own interest, which we need to do as trustees, and also looking at the good of the whole. I just really feel like you wouldn't want to take this lightly to not be in it. Not that that's not a reasonable thing to consider. I know that there can also be, there's some very strong personalities on MTSBA with a lot of political connections that bring things forward. Like, I don't think that we would be sitting with those millions of dollars of STARS money if we didn't have probably Lance Melton in there, and some of those backroom deals can be controversial. But on the other hand, we know what our budget looks like, and we know what that would feel like if we didn't have the STARS money and we were telling our staff that they got no raises again, but after a 1% raise last year. So it's kind of like, what exactly do you want from it? The leadership at MTSBA, and I think the other camps organizations, are aware of the fact that people are feeling unhappy and want to know more about it and want to know what that would really look like from a state perspective and advocacy. So that would be my perspective.
Have any of the other AA's backed out? Everyone's.
No, everyone's in. The other one that I hear the most, the most kickback would be by Bozeman. You know, and I don't know, a lot of us spent quite a bit of time up at the legislature, and I did as well. And it is a really, really hard time. Like, the things that you really believe in, if let's just say some of the transgender things that we want and we want everyone to be taken care of, like, we are in an incredibly red state right now. If you make that the center of your platform, you probably will get nothing. So it's like a real philosophical problem. Like, do I do this that I believe in and have our schools be unfunded because of the makeup and the propaganda that runs through the legislature? Or do we find like a balance point? And those are like really hard calls. And you look at some of the things in history that have happened where marginalized people have been left behind for the same reasons. I mean, you struggle with that, but on the other hand, that is reality. Like, you go for those things right now, and you've got this, and maybe that's the right thing to do, but you better do it knowing what the consequences are. So I don't think that there's people at MTSBA that think that some of those social issues are not important. They do, but right in the last legislature, they chose because of the financial uncertainty that all the districts are facing to go for maximizing money in the coffers. And I know that there would be a point where, you know, treatment of people where that would no longer be worthwhile, but that was the call that was made. So I think that those points are super valid, but they're also extremely complicated and have really big repercussions. So I've thought a lot about it, and I still think at this point we're better together, but I think that we really need to look at things going forward and maybe get some other groups that come forward and talk about what they would like to see. So I don't know if that's helpful.
It is, it's exactly, it's the perspective that I think that for us not to be in, it's too premature to a knee-jerk reaction, because I've had some concerns, or we've had concerns. I also know it's a pivotal year. It's a single study. A fractured advocacy group doesn't bode well to us as we are moving forward in the next 2 years of funding. So we need to stay collective, and I think that the communication needs to happen rather than not joining at this point.
And I'll just throw that out there again. I have a pretty good relationship with the MTSBA people, and I am very willing to bring your concerns forward, or if we want to talk about it more as a board in the direction that we want to go, I will bring that forward as well.
I have a question I wasn't actually at the legislature very often this year, so I have a question for like all of you who were, and especially you trustee Catherine and Susan Butcher. I hear everything you're saying, right, about it's disappointing. I have to, that we don't have more money, and I can't say that the problem is necessarily just about the advocacy of MTSBA. They're swimming against a tough stream. And I hear what you're saying, Trustee Hathorn, about some of the niche social issues. I guess this is very personal, but my problem isn't that they don't stand up and fight for every last person. It's that they don't just call BS on some of that stuff. Those are not even real problems, but I get why they don't. But my question for you guys who've been there is, if the double A's were to leave, and that is very hypothetical, when I watch what the legislature did with property taxes, it completely screwed over the state's largest city. 1 in 5 Montanans lives in Billings, and the change that they made to property taxes destroyed that city's budget and the way they generate income. And I just feel like they don't really even care about cities. Like, if the double A's were all on their own, would we be worse off? Like, are we better off with the trustees fictionalized one-room schoolhouse that people can feel romantic about? Are we better off advocating with them strictly as just a political win than being all by ourselves when they don't seem to really like cities?
They being the
legislature.
Yeah, that's a big.
Yeah, I mean, we might be disappointed with the advocacy that we have, and I am, but I'm not sure that being on our own would get us any more.
I guess like I said, bring back that unique perspective, being in a Class C league. I just feel very passionate about every student in Montana, even though that's not our direct responsibility. And so if the double A's pull out, that's going to be a huge negative for students as a whole. Probably half the students in our state. And not that that's our primary responsibility, we're answering to our constituents, but democracy and taking care of one another seems to be kind of going out the window as of late. And this is a case where I think it deserves careful consideration, what we do as double A's and how that affects, kids in Ecolaka. Because if you were in Ecolaka, you would love those kids too.
I just have to say, for the price tag, I guess maybe there's two comments. One is, if we did decide, then that puts a lot more work on our shoulders and our admin shoulders of having them to go and do the advocacy, right? Because then is it that we're gonna pull out that money, but then still expect that we benefit from the work that they're doing? That also doesn't feel right. At the same time, we would still have time to dig further into this in a longer span of time. So if right now we say, you know what, the work that they're doing that we are benefiting from does validate the amount of money that they're asking for us to pay, maybe that is something where we can say, yeah, like that'll work for now. And now let's take the next year to really dive into what are the needs we're expecting? Where do we feel like the shortfalls are on their end? Use our advocates to go and kind of speak on our behalf and work with them to figure that out. And then maybe when it comes back around time, if it's not where we want it to be, have a different discussion. But I would definitely support one more round while then we try to look internally at the impact that would make if we did decide to pull out. And this is just for 1 year, or is this a 2-year contract? Like, I don't know, contract's the right word, but.
1 year. Yeah.
So that we would be able to come back if we chose to in a year to reevaluate where we stand and decide to put it back on and vote for it, right?
Yes.
Maybe a key point that we have trustee Hathorn share that we're having this discussion right now.
Yeah.
How we're making that.
Yeah, and Lance Shelton, executive director, is very, very aware of it feels fractured and knows that this is, and even asked that we have these open dialogues and get back to the board and the executive team on MTSBA. But I think I would need, I don't think now is the time, but I would need direction more specifically as to what we would expect and how that would look different going forward, and then maybe see how that compares to the other double A's. Or Superintendent Welch, you may work with the other double A's so that they're kind of giving a unified message to the municipal directors that are representing the MTSBA interests, and we would have a more unified voice.
I just want to say I've taken their trustee training and I get their daily emails. I learn a lot. I get a lot of value from those things that they're providing. Within our every year.
Yeah, it's a good point. they do have, trainings that we could attend, and they do budget trainings, they used to, I think they had to cancel for staffing, but they provide some, PD as well.
I do recommend Think Tank Thursdays, free. You can get on there, ask any questions, listen to the questions that people have. They have a lot of.
Yeah.
They're not stingy with their time. That's one thing. They do give a lot of services, and I probably haven't done a great job of really promoting what those are for trustees to use, but I'll try to do a better job on that.
This is a great, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I think that trustee Walsh said everything I wanted to say.
And note, again, my recommendation is that, submit forward is approve this. There are other districts on south of us that had about an hour discussion around this as well. There's, other boards are doing the same thing, having this conversation.
Well, thank you for the conversation. I think it's great. I'm glad we talked it all the way through. I have to say, I agree with kind of where everyone else is standing. It's imperfect, but the alternative is probably more imperfect, and we do have good representation.
It's not the right time.
And it feels like they're aware of the problems within their ranks, and we have a voice and can make that a stronger voice if we want. But yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Superintendent Wells. Just head on for another year. Right.
Public left.
Well, no, she's here.
Yeah,
We don't even have a
drove her
motion.
right out.
We have a motion for the approval of the MTSBA membership renewal.
Chair McKee, I move approval of the MTSBA membership renewal 526.
Thank you, trustee Walsh. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a second from trustee Hathorn? All right, public comment? Any further board comment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion passes 8-0. To new business, item C. Retreat time.
Let's go.
We've got hours of discussion before we rest, then.
That's a little adjourn later.
Yeah.
Okay, it is already off my agenda schedule, my goodness. It was the public comment that got us. 10 o'clock, our admin team is out there, probably lobstered by now. Let's go 10 o'clock on the deck. We'll get a 7-minute break.
Okay.
And get whatever you'd like to drink and meet you on the deck. And
If you want to meet the read dog.
all the read dogs are here.
Oh.
Yeah, they're superstars.
Told me they liked it.
Yeah.